Hello everybody and welcome to the first video I'm going to upload. This is, as I say, the first ever YouTube video I've done, and I wanted to do it based on the new McFadden 21 rules. And the purpose of this video is to be an open training session with the ANCs, and I wanted to sort of help some of our newer coaches to learn how to do the various different forms of offense and defense. So this video is going to be about blitzing. I'm going to follow it up, assuming this is a success. I'm going to follow it up with a video on zonal defense. I'm going to follow it up with a video on how to stop a run play. And then I'm going to look at the, and by the way, run play is going to cover things like run block and juke and active spin, which is a new move. I'm then also going to look at offense. I'm going to look at how to construct a passing play, how to construct a running play, and as part of the passing play I'm going to look at how to protect the pocket, because I think that's something which is very hard to do, and I'm going to compare the rules changes to the new passing skills. I'm going to compare pocket passer and QB read and route passer, all the various different passing skills. Screen passer is a little bit of a weird one because it's more just an extension to the run play along with pitch. The reason I say that is that the pass has to be behind the line of scrimmage for screen passer, and pitch is more just an extension of the handoff. So as I say, this first video is going to focus on Blitz. Now what I've done is I've gone through this deck and pulled out some of the more interesting blitzers in the game and wanted to talk about them first of all. Now it's important I say at the start, any team can create a blitz. Any team can create a really effective blitz, but it's worth looking at what skills you've got on your team. So as I say, I'm going to be playing with ANCs who have got block +1, blitz, pocket passer and spin. So the two relevant skills on defense are going to be block +1 and blitz. So the block +1 is on my 4 and the blitz is on my 5. Now I've invited to the training session the Bulls. So they are the team who are here to get kicked around a little bit. So as you can see, they've got a guy with pocket passer, and so they are probably going to want to create a nice safe pocket and going to want to pass the ball using that skill. The pocket passer is now extremely good. It was good before, but it's now extremely good. So if I just move this up, so we'll be starting with the Bulls on their 20-yard line as though they were just kicking off the game. So before we get on to setting up a play, I'm just going to look at what skills are available. Now, as you can see, I've pulled out all the different blitzers who are of interest. These guys have all got shove in some mechanic. So we've got Boss, who is part of the Yellow Jackets. He has got shove and block +1 and team player. He is a bit of a beast. Team player is a little bit of an odd one on him though, and I'll get to that in a minute. So we've then got this guy who's got shove and block +1. He's part of the engines. We've got Mean, who is part of the Pitbulls, one of my favourite teams. We've got this guy who is Stop. He's got shove and block +1, so exactly the same as this guy. He's part of the Trucks, another of my favourite teams. Then we've got this guy who is Sack. He is also on the Trucks and has shove. McFadden, who is obviously who the expansion is named after, he's got shove. And Maron of the Banditos. Stiff arm only works on offense, so the only relevant skill we'll be talking about here is shove. So to all intents and purposes, he is exactly the same as these two guys. So these guys are, as I say, the sort of bullies on the team. They're the 3s. We've then got these two guys. Now, this is going to sound really weird. Block +1 on a 4 is one of my absolute favourite blitzing skills. There are only 2 teams in the game, to the best of my knowledge. I'll have to double check. But to the best of my knowledge, there are only 2 teams in the league who have block +1 on a 4. And part of the reason I went with Anks is, I mean, they just look generally awesome, but block +1 on a 4 is a really strong move that I think is probably underestimated. Then my next favourite guys are the Blitzers. By the way, I'm not quite ranking this correctly. That would be a more accurate rank of how I rate these guys as Blitzers. The next guys are these guys who have just got Blitz on a 5. In this case, Blitz on a 4. To all intents and purposes, we're going to ignore this guy because I actually don't like having Blitz on a 4. Blitz on a 5 is just a little bit more mobile while still being hard enough to really smack a 7 in the face. So yeah, I do tend to prefer Blitz on a 5 to Blitz on a 4, but Blitz on a 4 can be useful. Then we've also got these guys who are kind of intermediate. They're not superstars, but they are definitely better. They're star players. So we've got this guy who's got Blitz and Lockdown. He's part of the Ninjas. Blitz and block +1. He's part of the Banditos. And this guy who has got Blitz and block +1. Now, I've thrown the Monsters guy into this group, even though he's only got Blitz, which is kind of a little bit cheating and breaking my own rules. The reason for that is that he has as a teammate this guy, who means that whenever Freezer activates his block party and gives a follow-up activation, if you use it on this guy, he is blitzing with a block +2. That is extremely powerful, and if anything, to put him probably into the superstar category. However, that is dependent on this triggering, so it's a little bit hit and miss. Then we've got these guys. So Shove, Blitz and block +1 on Trailer. He is an absolute monster. And this guy, JJ Jewel, obviously named after JJ Watt, and he is an absolute monster as well. These 2 guys are incredible. The one thing I will say is that I prefer not to have all my eggs in one basket. I like a team that synergizes well, that gets players working together. So, I mean, that's part of the reason I like Pitbulls. Pitbulls have got 4 skills on 4 different players. It's part of the reason I like the Anks, 4 skills and 4 different players. It's part of the reason I like Tridents, 4 skills and 4 different players. It's part of the reason I like the Monsters, in the fact that they get 2 guys working together, and that is pretty much their defense, or their defensive plan, more often than not. It's part of also the reason I quite like the Trucks, who have, as we can see, 4 guys who are really good defensive players on Trucks, these 4, and they are just, yeah, really, really good. So the next group I wanted to talk about is these guys. I've grouped all these together because these all have team player. This guy has team player as well, but that's not quite as important that we talk about this right now. Now, these guys who've got team player, 4s, love it. Absolutely love it, because 4 with a team player is what you really want. You don't really want to put team player on a 3, in my opinion, because more often than not, a 3 with team player is a really good... a 3 you ought to be having as your most offensive weapon. A team player guy isn't going to be your most active guy, but he's going to benefit all the guys around him. You don't want your 3 to be inactive, for the most part. So I'm not a massive fan of having a 3 with team player. I've thrown this guy in with the team player guys just to talk about him there, because, as I say, he's going to be benefiting his teammate in the same way that these guys will. Or rather, in a similar way that these guys will. His is a little bit luck dependent, but for the most part, it's going to be benefiting this guy. So we're going to set the ball up, and I'm going to be taking control of the Anks. I'm going to be moving these guys out of the way for a little moment, but I might well come back to them and talk you through some of what they can do. Let's put them so they're actually out of the way. Up there. Okay, so let's just set the Anks up with a quick formation. So there's a couple of different hypotheses of what you can do with a with the different types of formation. I'm just going to go with what I might typically run if I were the Bulls coach, and I'm going to explain properly why I'm doing everything when I get into the videos on how to protect the pocket, and when I get onto the videos of how to create a pass and how to create a run. But essentially that's a reasonable formation of how I might set up if I was the Bulls coach. So suppose the Bulls coach has said, yep, I've finished my setup, Anks are now come to the table, and Anks get their chance to set up. Now, as an offensive coach, I'm going to be looking at where I'm going to be hitting. I want to make sure that this guy and this guy and this guy are positioned properly, because these three are my most offensive weapons. I therefore don't want to have them bogged down. That means these two are definitely going to have to be on the line. Now, how I place them on the line is a little bit of debate. It's worth looking at who they've got in their centre, because if I go wide and set up against them like that, and it turns out that there is a 3 underneath, I'm asking for him to get his head kicked in. Similarly, if I go with a 4 and there's a 4 there, I'm asking for him to get his head kicked in because this guy's already at +3. So, supposing there's a 5 there, I might well set up wide. If there was a 3 there, I'd probably set up with at least one guy narrow, which means that this guy is then going to be at +2 and topping out at that. Suppose they've gone narrow, I've gone wide. That's cool. So this guy, he is going to be at block +1. So if I line him up somewhere like here, he's got 2 steps to hit this guy, and he's going to be at +3. That's pretty cool. This guy, I'm going to set him up so that he's going to be marking the number 7. Now, if I set him up here or here, it's pretty cool. I can do that. I don't want him to be completely on the line, because this guy can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and be past him. Now that's cool in the sense that I can then just block him into touch, but if he does that and goes the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then I've got no way of blocking him into touch. I'm going to be pushing him further down the field, which I don't really want to do. It's just a recipe for disaster. I'm better off having him like that. Now, in a blitz, I've set up there, I've worked out who my linemen are going to be, I've worked out where my weapons are going to be, and then I've got the other 3 guys to worry about. Now, Spivey's advice in the rulebook is to always either completely commit to the blitz or completely commit to zonal. Mostly agree. Completely committing to the blitz does mean putting your players out here and activating them and moving them forward. However, you're never going to be doing an 8-man rush. So these guys are going to be deep, and I'll probably set them up with one guy marking this side. Anything that comes through this channel, he's going to be on it with this guy supporting if the blitz fails. This guy is going to be on this side, and this guy is going to be deep. So that is a pretty reasonable setup. I know I've got these guys who I want to activate. I'd probably actually also swap it over. I've not really been paying attention to what I was doing there, but the reason I would swap it over is that this guy, if he's like that, then he's got an easy hit on this guy. Whereas if I swap them over, then even if worst case comes to it and their 34 activates before my 38 does, he's still not got an easy block there. So let's whip all these cards out and call a play. So let's go with calling the Bulls play first of all. So they might go with 77 and then 65, 65, 34 and 55. Now, Bulls are a great example of this because they have got this guy who has got stiff arm and run block. So Bulls can reasonably set up with a play assuming it's going to be a pass. However, the 5th card is the all-important card and is his. Bulls coach can make a decision on the 5th card whether he wants it to be a run or a pass. If it's a run, he takes it with his 5th card and double teams by the 6th card, the first card from hand effectively, also being his card, which is quite cool. If, however, he wants it to be a pass play, if he's got an open receiver at that point, he can throw it to him and this guy can run out on the 5th card and be an extra open receiver, an extra option. So that is a reasonable setup for both teams. So if I was the Anks coach, which I am now, I'd probably activate 55, 38, 44. These guys are going to be my Blitz guys, and not too fussed which order I want to go in. There are reasons I might do one than the other if I've picked up on the opposite coach doing a particular thing, but the way Technobowl works in giving bonus activations, I don't think it would make a huge amount of difference. The other one thing I might just do is swap those guys around a little bit just before. Obviously that wouldn't have been legal in the game, but I'm just tinkering with the formation as I do it. So we've gone with 55 and 38. Now both of those, 55 I'm probably going to want to use an extra card so that I can smash him at +3. 38 I'm probably going to want to be using a second card, so I'm not going to play their other cards. 44 has got the chance to beat 65 up twice, so I'm going to use his cards twice. I could do them back to back if I really wanted to be mean, or I could just do them one at a time. It's cool either way. So that is 44 gone twice. Now, just as a sort of final precaution, I think it's always worth making your final card in a play one of your backfield guys. The reason I say that is that on that 5th card, you want to either sack the guy or you want to be reacting and doing something to prevent that pass, particularly against pocket passer. Obviously, in the new McFadden rules, pocket passer does kick in earlier and stronger, but it'll be a brave coach that puts that card in his actual play call, and I'll explain more about why in the video on pocket passing. So I'm all set for both teams. Let's talk about motion. So normally I won't do any motion in this situation unless, of course, the offense does something, to demonstrate to me that it's going to be one particular type of play or the other. If I can see that this guy's on the line, I sometimes might move that guy up, and the reason is then this guy can just come in and blitz at the +3 automatic. So let's suppose I've done that. I might throw away that card. I know he's not going to be part of my play call, so that would be one of the ones I throw away. One other thing that's worth talking about with motion is my 7. Now, doing a blitz with a 7 is kind of nuts because your 7 is pretty weak. He's going to get smashed the second anyone comes near him. However, once in a while, I think it's worth doing just to keep your opponent honest. Now, if I was to motion the 7 here and was to have the 7 as my first card in my deck, then the 7 could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's pressure on the first card, which is awesome and can completely disrupt and cripple a opposing play. But there is a danger, and the danger is that I've now not got a safety. And it's perfectly reasonable that this guy will get free, or this guy will get free. If they do, and this guy is then able to step and throw it, I have just opened a massive can of worms. Don't particularly want to make that a regular thing, but once in a while, just to keep your opponent honest, is, I think, quite sensible. Yeah. So here we are set up, typical normal play. Draw those first cards. So 77 and 55. So obviously in this situation, 77 realizes what's going to happen to him and is going to get out of the way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that in itself forces 55 into a decision. Does he carry on with the blitz he wanted, going forwards, or does he come back and smash him for a cheap shot plus 3? In this situation, every single time I will go for that plus 3. So 1, 2. The reason I'm doing it is because I'm now pushing him into touch, which is an automatic critical. It's going to force him to be knocked down. So roll the dice, and I roll perfectly average, but at plus 3, that does mean I get a full activation with the player of my choice. So in that sort of situation, I'm now going to be looking at what options I've got available to me to put pressure onto the QB. This guy going into him is an option because it gets me closer to the QB while also probably generating another activation. This guy as an outside blitz is also a reasonable option. I think I'm going to just show you the bog standard boring beat him up kind of way. So let's say I move 2 into there. I can now block him away from the quarterback, away from help. So this is then a plus 3, which is again a full success. So now I've got to look at how can I generate another full success so that I can do something else again with him. And this is probably going to come down to this guy. So 38 on 46. I'm going to whip out 38's card to make it a plus 3 and go for a block there. And that's a full success. Obviously you can't rely on these dice being this good, but when they are, it's nice. So 44 is going to step into there and block him at plus 3. So that's again a full success, and that's pressure. So in this instance I would press the pressure button, but just because I've got both decks in hand, I'm just going to whip out 2 cards at random. So now with the extra activation, I'm looking at what options are available to me. It's always nice to knock players over, and 38 has got a prime opportunity to do so here. So move him in and aim a block at 51, which is automatically at plus 3 because I've got a teammate helping me. There's a difference of 2. So again, that's a full success. That's kind of getting a bit crazy now. So with that full success, number 6 is probably going to come and do the outside blitz that I was saying about. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's not quite able to get there, but on the next card he will do. So I've got 38 and I've got 65. Now at this point, 38 hasn't got his viable option that he was going to go for here. Unfortunately, he's been a bit over-eager and knocked him over already. It's cool. 34 is over here. So if I use my read and react, there is every chance that 34 will also read and react. but you can't read and react and do a half move and action, so I'm okay on that. So I think as the Hanks coach will read and react on this, which gives the Bulls coach the chance to do the same. And I think he is also going to read and react. And he's going to read and react to the 55. So we flip them both, and 6 has the choice on initiative, so 6 can go first. So he's just going to step into there for pressure. So pull out 2 cards again at random, and that is a read and react, so I cannot do a half move and action, but I could use my adjustment if I wanted to. And looking at what's coming up in the play call, oops. So obviously 44 is kind of stuck there now. I think it probably is worth using an adjustment and moving this guy 1, 2, 3. Moving that guy gets a chance to get another blitz on this guy. It's weird how this has turned out. I said I was going to blitz with these guys specifically, and I've ended up blitzing with the 2 guys that were supposed to be my cornerbacks. But yeah. So now 55 is up. He can step to there for 2. Oh no, yes he can. He's got run block, so he can step to there for 2 and do run block on my 6. Obviously he can't bench boost because the other 55 card is in that play call. So a block at +2. Partial success. So push him out the way and follow up into that space. Or will he? It's tempting to take the handoff. Yeah, let's take the handoff. So anything but doubles. He's good. And then, so that was the first diagonal. So that's 2, 3. 3, 4, 5. And just because the ball's safer in his hands, I'm going to hand off to the 34. So free half move for the Yanks player would be sensible with this guy. 1, 2, 3, and that's now again pressure. So grab 2 cards at random, and we are done. Next card. So we've got 44 and 65. Things are falling apart a bit for the Bulls player, but 44 is again a little bit useless. He's got himself sandwiched there, so he cannot move and action. And if he goes for 6, he'll only be at +2. This is a good point probably to talk about what die rolls you should consider going for. On offense, you'll probably find you have to go for rolls at +2 and +1 just to make something happen. On defense, generally speaking, you shouldn't be rolling at +1 or +2, generally speaking. The reason being is that if I do roll at those and it goes wrong, the swing in favour of my opponent is just too great. So what I mean is that when it goes wrong, the other team will then obviously get a free action, and particularly when you're on defense, that's just asking for trouble if you're giving your opponent free actions. So generally take it when it's at +3. Generally speaking, don't take it if it's less than that. The exceptions would be if doing so would get you the chance to get pressure, and also the other exception would be if going for a tackle, because going for a tackle ends the play, so it doesn't really matter if you only get a partial success. Going for a tackle, I'll often take a +1 or +2. But in this scenario, we've got 44 and 65. So I'm going to ditch 44 because he's not fantastic. I'm going to go for 51 instead. 51 is here. Now 51 is going to be hopeless at making the tackle, but we're still behind the line of scrimmage, so that would be pressure. And under the new McFadden rules, that is then 2 guys on a 34, which means the 34 is incapable of movement and therefore it ends the play. So knowing that I've read and react, the Bulls player gets the chance to do the same. However, there isn't much he could. He could react with one of the 4s, but then of course the 51 will have the initiative on him. He could react with, or he could just try and use the 65. I don't think he's got a lot of options here, so I'm just going to stick with what I played. So the 65 does get to go first, and probably will just go for the smash on 65. Evens, looking for a 10. Ooh, so close. However, that's a free half move, and that ends the play. So that was the first take I did of this, and straight away got a successful blitz for a loss of 5. So how do these players all fit into that? So the guy who's got the block +1, as I say, these 2 are my favourite blitzers in the game. They basically operate almost like an extra number 3. And the number 3 is so critical to any blitz. Every team has a number 3. And the 3 is so critical to every blitz because he gives bonus actions. What's more is if you can do stuff like this, like I did with this guy, and get a guy blocked so that he's there by doing a corner, block to there, then you can then follow it up by moving this guy over, knocking him over, and then you've got another block here to knock this guy over. There's a lot you can do just with a vanilla team. So these guys, awesome, because it's like having an extra 3. These guys, the guys who I said were like bullies, shove gives you even more options for knocking players over, and that's why these guys are really good, because when you shove a guy and there is not the space to shove him 2 spaces, he's moved 1 space and knocked over automatically. So shove gets a nice tick because you can just create mayhem and knock everyone over, playing skittles with the offense. So that's quite useful. Then we have the blitzers. Now, as you can kind of saw in that little blitz I did there, I tend to use these guys to bully the opposite 7. Now, in a scenario where the 7 didn't get the jump on me and didn't go first, then obviously where this 7 didn't get the jump on me and didn't go first, then I would have instead been moving in before him. Let's reset the situation to where it was. We were something like that. Now, if we're in this situation and this guy doesn't move first, I would move in, block, hope to get the +3. Well, obviously rolling at +3, but hopefully get full success. And then 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I would use the bonus activation maybe here, aim for another +3, and then this guy's coming in to block again. The reason I quite like block in this situation and not tackle is because block, I can push you into the end zone. If I was to get a doubles there, then that counts as an automatic tackle. It doesn't count as a fumble anymore because that's been changed. But blocking into the end zone is quite brutal for a tackle. Even if it wasn't a block into the end zone, even if I just went for a block into the end zone, you now can't call the play dead, because calling the play dead would obviously give away a safety. So, like I say, I like to use the 5s for beating up offensive 7s. these guys. These guys also beat up offensive 7s, but they just do it a little better. And then these guys beat the 7 up and bury him. So these guys all quite good at hunting down 7s, beating them up, and then getting round to the quarterback on the outside. Next guys, these ones, the team players. Obviously Anks don't have any team players, so it's not something I was able to demonstrate. But if I did have a team player, I would probably have set him up on one of these corners. So taking these all out of the way and imagining that I've got the pit bulls. Pit bulls have got these 3 guys who I wanted to talk about, and we'll just replicate these by pulling these ones out. So we'll take out the 44, it's already down there, and we'll put in 43. So I might have set these up something like this. Probably put him off the line, and then put these guys that way round. The reason this is quite useful is that now I've got this guy who is going to be giving team player to when the shove comes in, so that's already at +3. Shoving from the corners is really useful. I've seen a lot of players automatically put their number 3 as the centre, or opposite the centre. The problem that causes is that you're never really going to be able to get a +3 on this guy if the offence is narrow. If the offence has gone wide, then that's a great move, putting that 3 there and shoving him right down the centre. But like I say, assuming the offence has gone narrow, then putting the 3 there is pretty much dead. You kind of want him to be your most mobile weapon. So yeah, that's pretty much how these teams will operate. This guy is, again, primarily he's a 3, but he's also block party. So you want him as a weapon, you don't want him to be on the line, and you want him to be giving bonuses to your guy who's going to be beating up 7s and 6s, and he's going to be running around the outside. So yeah, that's a video. It's taken 37 minutes. Next ones up will be zonal marking, and then I'll look at the offense, passing, and also look at how to stop a run play on defense, and then I'll look at the offense, passing plays, running plays, and how to create a pocket when it comes to pocket passer. So yeah, thanks.